Good morning. Welcome to Durham. Welcome to the 4th Congressional District. In case you didn't know, that's where you are. Welcome to this gathering that I think will be of great profit and great interest to everybody concerned. We're very, very glad to welcome you here. And I'm David Price, the 4th District Congressman. It's my privilege today to kick off this meeting. We're proud to welcome Consumer Financial Protection Bureau Director Richard Cordray to the Triangle today, and also his CFPB team, a number of people working with him as this Bureau gets up and running. I have told him that the Bureau could not have chosen a more appropriate place to host a field hearing than Durham, North Carolina, and the Triangle region of North Carolina. Durham's home to a community of consumer protection and empowerment organizations with a long tradition of education and advocacy. And of course, our region is also home to a number of outstanding financial institutions. We all take considerable pride in the successful efforts of Durham's consumer protection, financial reform organizations to influence national policy, and I can tell you that's a process that began well before the 2008 financial crisis. My only regret today is that because of a months-long commitment to the UN Association of Western Triangle, already been postponed once, I simply have to join them at Carolina Meadows at 1 o'clock, so I'm going to have to leave fairly quickly. But I do appreciate the chance to visit with Mr. Cordray and to welcome all of you here and to launch this discussion. Strong consumer protections are vital to our economic security and to this country's continued recovery. Unfortunately, it wasn't until our nation was faced with an economic crisis, largely brought on by abusive lending, by deceptive financial products, by unchecked financial speculation on Wall Street. We all know the accumulation of problems that led to the economic collapse and a very, very painstaking recovery. It's in the wake of this that we have finally established a federal agency specifically dedicated to the oversight of financial services and products on behalf of the average American consumer. As everyone here knows, the landmark Dodd-Frank legislation passed last Congress created this Bureau. Unfortunately, the opponents of financial regulation and reform opposed this agency from the beginning and have erected obstacles to its effective functioning ever since. Fortunately, Director Cordray and his team are in the process of overcoming those obstacles and in a very systematic and professional and I think fair and open way are establishing this Bureau, establishing the rules of the road, and reaching out to stakeholders on all sides to make sure that we have all the ideas thoroughly vetted, that we don't expect perfect agreement, of course, but that we do have a sense that this has been a participatory process and one that is fair and open, and that in the end will establish rules of the road that will benefit the consumer, will actually benefit the financial services industry. They're rules that we can all live with, will create a greater sense of fairness and legitimacy for the entire system. That's the goal. And I do think the way Director Cordray and his team have proceeded is consonant with that goal, is consistent with that kind of approach. We know that his confirmation was delayed for far too long because of, frankly, outrageous abuses of Senate procedures by some who were opposed not to him particularly, but to the very mission of this Bureau. So it wasn't until the President used his recess appointment authority that Director Cordray was finally installed as director earlier this year. But as I say, the progress since that time, I believe, has built confidence and has helped us overcome some of the turmoil of that earlier process. I certainly hope so. We still struggle, though. There's been legislation passed. There have been funding cuts enacted. Certainly funding cuts enacted by one House that has has promised to weaken this Bureau and to compromise its operations. So we have a continuing struggle, I think a continuing responsibility in the Congress to keep our eye on the objective here and to certainly not detract from it, but also to facilitate the formation of this Bureau and its effective functioning. That should be the charge of all of us, regardless of party, regardless of ideology. And I'm very hopeful that we can achieve that kind of cooperative approach and have here an agency that functions at the maximum level of effectiveness. I think this kind of outreach here today, this kind of input from all of you, is critical to that from the agency's point of view. And so I'm grateful, for that reason, I'm grateful for everyone being here and for the wonderful participation we've had in putting this meeting together. I think it'll be a very successful one. Hope we can all take pride in the creation of this Bureau and also work cooperatively to help it succeed. We have to work diligently to make sure our consumers are well informed, make sure they're protected. There's some very complex financial products out there. There are potential abuses, we all know. So one of the areas that is going to be the focus today is one that does need attention, the area of prepaid cards, the issue of prepaid cards. It's a very popular product. It holds promise for many consumers. It also holds perils. And so there's some risk involved, and we need to know. We need to know with industry and consumer groups coming together, talking together with the Bureau to discuss the potential impact of these products, what rules of the road are warranted and are necessary as these increasingly diverse products are launched. That's the topic today, and it's one that I am confident we'll make good headway on. So thank you all for being here today. Thanks to Director Cordray and to his team for coming to North Carolina. I think we have a lot to offer and we'll have a lot to learn. So thank you for being part of this gathering.
Thank you, Congressman Price, for the gracious welcome. My name is Zixon Martinez. I am the Assistant Director for the Office of Community Affairs at the CFPB. I'd like to next introduce a figure who is well known in North Carolina and nationally. North Carolina Attorney General Roy Cooper is a strong voice for consumers from his early days in the legislature when he wrote the nation's toughest anti-predatory lending laws to this year, when he negotiated one of the largest state civil settlements against national banks for foreclosure and lending abuse. He is one of the state attorneys general who advocated for federal authorities to stop unfair lending practices and to provide fairer rules for consumers. We are very glad to have him here today. Welcome, Attorney General Cooper.
Great to see so many people here today and to get input from you on this important financial product. I'm also very glad to be able to introduce my friend to you, the Director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. But first, I want to welcome those of you outside of North Carolina to North Carolina. We have been a leader in this country in consumer protection. There are so many people here who are national voices for looking out for people who need protection from big banks, from financial companies, from scam artists, from those who would take advantage of them. I see Martin Eakes and Peter Skillen and Chris Kukla. There's so many others who have been here and who have been strong voices. Because in North Carolina, we did have the first anti-predatory lending law in the country. We did run payday lending out of our state. We have worked hard. We have worked hard for fair products for consumers. But the fight has been difficult, and the fight is far from over. What's important about today is that we have a critical federal partner here. In the past decade, for most of the time, not only has the federal government been unhelpful, they have opposed efforts by the state and state attorneys general to protect consumers and to use their authority to make sure that we do the right things for working families in North Carolina. But today we have an organization here that's dedicated to doing that. It was a fight to get to this moment. There were consumer protection elements in many federal agencies. The problems were that none of these agencies put an emphasis on consumer protection. So when we would get a complaint in our office that had to do with a federal regulation, whether it be a credit card or a bank issue or some type of federal loan that we couldn't get at, many times we would send that complaint to Washington and would never hear anything back. That's why I and many others fought so hard for the creation of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. This agency pulls together all of those efforts in the various agencies. And its one job is to look out for consumers, not only in North Carolina, but across the country. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, is them being able to set up some rules in this and in other areas to make sure consumers are protected, and that when we pick up the phone and call about a problem with a North Carolinian, they will answer back. And not only that, they will work with us and give us some authority to take action as well, because we fought for this agency, but we wanted to make sure that the states could continue to work hard to fight consumers and to could work along with the federal government to make sure that people don't get ripped off. And that's where we are today. Prepaid cards can be a very good thing or a very bad thing. I think the purpose of the meeting today is to make sure they work for consumers not only in North Carolina, but across the country. So many people, millions of people, are outside the banking system. And when they get that paycheck, or they get that small loan, or they get a check from their Aunt Sarah, they have to go down many times and pay large fees to cash those checks. And then they are dealing with cash and having to keep up with that. The fact that you have a prepaid card where you could load these checks that you get and control it in a way that you can use it. Many vendors don't take cash anymore. So many consumers don't have the option without that card. So the purpose of today's meeting is to make sure we tell the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau what things we need to look out for to protect North Carolina consumers and consumers across the country when we have these prepaid cards. I've seen some pretty good cards out there that I think will work. I've seen some that are egregious in the amounts of fees and the ways that they can trick consumers out of their hard-earned money. So that's what this is about today. I, like Congressman Price, do have to be somewhere else. I do have staff here that's going to look at this. I have read the report that you're going to talk about today. Rich, I've read all of your remarks, so I know exactly what you are going to say. And the staff is going to report back to me on everything that's said today, because I want to know, as Rich told me, this meeting was set up just a couple of weeks ago, but I wanted to make sure that I put time in my schedule to be here. Now I get to do something fun and to introduce my friend who's now the head of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Rich Cordray served as a state representative in Ohio, as Ohio's state treasurer, as the state of Ohio's first solicitor general, and where I got to know him was when he served as Ohio's attorney general. Brilliant guy, 5-time Jeopardy champion. And I think, Rich, that was when you couldn't keep winning. I think they cut you off at 5. He is an excellent lawyer. He has a tremendous legal background, and when you look at his record as Ohio Attorney General, you can tell that he cared about consumers in Ohio and across the country. He took some bold actions to make sure they were protected. When I talked to Elizabeth Warren about who should do this and talked with the president's team, I thought that this should be the #1 choice. and he has certainly hit the ground running and has done an excellent job. The President has put his trust in him in this important agency, and it is critical that we give him the support that he needs to do this. Rich and I agree on a lot of things, but I've had to tell him over and over again, Rich, Ohio is not first in flight. Sorry. You know, the Wright brothers had that little shop up there, but this is where it happened. You just got to remember that. This is where it happened. It is my privilege and pleasure to introduce to you the Director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and my friend, Richard Cordray. Richard?
I want to begin by thanking Congressman Price for hosting us here in his district today, and I want to especially thank my friend Attorney General Cooper, who not only has been fighting for consumers for many years, but when he was the president of the National Association of Attorneys General, which is a real honor elected by your colleagues, he made it a point in his presidential initiative, which ran until last year, to work on developing the kind of relationship between the state attorneys general and the new Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which will enable us, as he said, to partner together to draw on what for both of us is always going to be limited resources to be most effective at fighting for consumers. And I'm glad to be working with you, Roy, and our colleagues, my former colleagues, and current colleagues, as I see it, to do that. And we're pleased. I will say that North Carolina has always had the advantage over Ohio that everybody from Ohio wants to come down here for spring break, and just because the Wright brothers did that years ago doesn't mean we're surrendering our claim to be first in flight. So in any event, thank you to all of you for joining us today, and we look forward to a balanced presentation of the issues. We love getting outside the Beltway. Congressman Price asked me earlier, he said it's great for you to come to North Carolina. I suppose this is something of a distraction from your work and your team running the Bureau. I said, no, we look at it differently. For us, this is a welcome change, a great relief. Part of the reason why we want to do this job is to be able to come and speak to people and listen to people who tell us exactly what consumers are experiencing. And so connecting with the people we work with and work for every day, which is each of you. So we thank you for being here. Let me welcome you to our event today and ask that you take a moment and begin by thinking about what life is like for people who find themselves outside the banking system in this country. What is life like if you don't have a checking account, you don't have a debit card or a credit card? Then suppose you could not even qualify for any of these products, which is true of many people in this country. How would you convert your paycheck into money you can spend? How would you go about paying your bills? How would you keep your money safe at the most fundamental level? About 9 million American families find themselves in precisely that situation. They're known as the unbanked. Some of them have been locked out of the banking system after experiencing troubles with their accounts. Others have never opened an account in the first place. Another 21 million families are the so-called underbanked. Although they actually have a bank account, they often use non-bank products to meet their financial needs, and there's a number of reasons for that. But these are just labels, unbanked, underbanked. The tens of millions of Americans who bear these labels are just hardworking people living paycheck to paycheck like a lot of other people and waging a constant struggle to make ends meet. In recent years, many of these families have turned to a relatively new type of product, a prepaid card. Consumers can load money onto these cards and then use them for everyday purchases, just like a debit card or a credit card, but without having to be attached to an individual bank account. As the prepaid card industry has grown, it has attracted a wide range of consumers. Some prefer to use prepaid cards for online shopping. Others use prepaid cards while traveling. Still others turn to prepaid cards as a budgeting tool, as is true, for example, of parents who send their children off to college with a prepaid card. All of these consumers need and deserve products that are safe, and whose costs and risks are clear up front. Yet right now, prepaid cards have far fewer consumer protections than bank accounts or debit cards or credit cards. And that is especially troubling because the people who use prepaid cards are, in many instances, the most vulnerable among us. Every dollar they pay in hidden fees is a dollar they cannot spend on supporting their families or themselves. These consumers are least able to take a hit if their prepaid card is lost or stolen, and yet they often have no guaranteed protection against that kind of disaster. For these reasons, we're announcing today that the Consumer Bureau is initiating a rulemaking process to address prepaid cards. We're launching the process by reaching out to the public for feedback and insight. That's why we're here. We'll get your perspective at today's field hearing, and we'll solicit public feedback through a formal comment process. In these ways, you will help us decide how we should go about regulating prepaid cards to better protect consumers and to provide clear rules for prepaid providers. At the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, we now oversee all consumer financial markets, ranging from mortgages to bank accounts to credit cards to student loans and many others. In the grand scheme of this universe of financial products and services, which is worth trillions of dollars, prepaid cards are not yet all that large. But the product is growing by leaps and bounds at an expected rate, we're told, of over 40% each year from 2010 to 2014. The two largest program managers for prepaid cards have reported a jump from 3.4 million active cards to more than 7 million active cards in just the past 3 years. And industry analysts predict that at the rate things are going, the total dollar amount that consumers will load onto prepaid cards will be nearly $167 billion 2 years from now. Much of this growth is coming from consumers who may be using this product as an alternative to a checking account by loading their wages onto a prepaid card. For example, the largest program manager in the nation reported that the direct deposit of funds increased by nearly 70% last year. And the second largest program manager reported that 42% of its customers had signed up to link their cards to a method of directly depositing funds. In fact, one of the reasons many consumers choose a prepaid card is because the fees on the card may be lower than the fees they have paid, especially when you include overdraft fees on a checking account. Other consumers like the fact that the majority of prepaid cards do not let them overdraw the amount of funds available to them, so they use the cards as a budgeting tool. As the market for prepaid cards expands, it is attracting new players. Some are large banks, and some are not banks at all. At the Consumer Bureau, our authority is not limited solely to banks. It's a great advantage for us. And in fact, we're working to level the playing field among all financial institutions in order to protect consumers. The expanding prepaid market means that new cards are entering the market constantly. These new cards sometimes come endorsed by a celebrity spokesperson. From the Kardashian sisters, to baseball stars like Alex Rodriguez, to the characters from the movie Twilight, none of whom I could name, we have seen all kinds of well-known people vouching for the benefits of prepaid cards or gracing the front of them. But this kind of celebrity marketing can be an unhelpful distraction to consumers who do not understand how the card works or don't realize how different the various cards can be, all of which makes it hard to tell whether a particular card is a good choice for their financial needs. We feel we're at a critical moment right now in the growth of the prepaid market. At the Consumer Bureau, our job is to do all we can to ensure that financial products and services actually help consumers rather than harm them. We want good practices to be instilled early on so that as the market grows, it does so responsibly. Clear rules in the prepaid market will help prevent the spread of low-road competition that hurts both consumers and the honest businesses that seek to serve them well. Over the course of this rulemaking, we're going to focus on two key issues: safety and transparency. We believe that innovation can bring great benefits to consumers. We've all seen that. We know that. And can provide those outside the traditional banking system with more access to financial products that can meet their needs. But we have a duty to make sure that these products are safe for consumers and that prepaid card managers do not make money by relying on tricks and traps that are unsustainable for card holders. Success in the marketplace is hollow if it comes at the expense of consumers. Many of us have experienced a time where we could not find our wallet, or when we realized with a sinking feeling we had left a credit card or debit card behind after making a purchase. Ever happened to any of you? It's happened to me, I can tell you. Others may have been victimized by someone who hacked into their accounts and racked up unauthorized charges on their credit cards or debit cards. After recovering from your anxiety or your anger, your next step begins to get you back on track, calling your bank or your credit card company and reporting what has happened. For debit cards and credit cards, federal law determines what happens next. Your responsibility for unauthorized charges is limited. Also, federal law provides a framework for resolving errors and disputes about unauthorized charges and ensures you have information on how to do so. In other words, the law provides considerable security to debit and credit card holders against unexpected losses. In contrast, prepaid cards do not have the same legal protections, and we think many consumers don't realize this. Although the networks that process prepaid card transactions, such as Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover, do require prepaid card issuers to provide contractual protections to cardholders, those protections are not as strong as those for debit and credit cards, and they're subject to change at any time. That is why we're considering how best to extend protections to prepaid card holders in the event that a card is lost or stolen, unauthorized charges are made, or a processing error results in an incorrect charge amount. Of course, even if the funds are secure, a prepaid card can still be risky for consumers in other ways. If you do not know the card's fee structure, it is easy to rack up charges unknowingly. And some prepaid cards do allow consumers to overdraw the money on the card and incur overdraft fees. So we're taking a close look at the costs, benefits, and protections related to overdraft features offered on prepaid cards. As part of our mission of making the markets work for consumers, we often find that consumers do not have the information they need to make sound decisions. This can also be the case with prepaid cards. Some prepaid cards have a very simple fee structure with only one or two fees. Others use more of a cafeteria-style approach to pricing, with separate fees being charged to load money onto the card, withdraw money from the card, make a purchase, check a balance, or even call customer service. That consumers can choose which type of prepaid card is best suited to their needs is potentially an advantage. But that's only true if consumers can compare products and their advantages and disadvantages side by side. We've heard from one consumer who went to check her balance on her prepaid card at an ATM and found that the balance was less than she expected. After checking her balance again to confirm what she had thought was an error, she called customer service. Unbeknownst to her, there was a fee for each of these actions, and her balance kept dropping. We believe it's important for companies to be upfront with consumers. If the company charges a fee for withdrawing money from the card, or checking your balance, or calling customer service, then consumers should know about it. Unfortunately, consumers often do not have this information until after they've purchased a prepaid card. Some cards will list major disclosures on the exterior packaging. However, with other cards, the fees, terms, and conditions that apply to the card are printed on an inner flap or in a magnificent origami pamphlet located inside the package. Hence, they go undisclosed until after the card has been purchased. Today, it is up to card issuers to decide what information is disclosed and when and how. Another fact that's important for consumers to know is whether funds that they load onto prepaid cards are protected by FDIC insurance. When consumers place funds in a credit union or a bank account, they take comfort in the fact that their money is federally insured, now up to $250,000 or more. But this guarantee does not necessarily apply to money loaded onto prepaid cards, despite what many consumers may think. Instead, companies that offer prepaid cards generally pool all the money loaded onto their cards in a single account. Some issuers have structured the pooled accounts in such a way that each of the cardholders does have the benefit of FDIC insurance should anything happen to the bank, but others do not. And there's no reliable data on how often this protection is provided. And there's no requirement that issuers provide this protection. Because consumers often have no way of knowing how the banks are treating their money, we will consider how best to let consumers know about the risks to the safety of their funds. So the Bureau is asking for input on how we can make the costs and risks of prepaid cards clearer and more accessible for consumers. We know this can be challenging when prepaid cards are sold in a retail setting in packages where space is at a premium. But consumers need to know this information so they can make the comparisons necessary to shop around and reduce surprises by understanding the true cost and the true nature of the product. In fact, we all recognize that for free markets to work as they should, people need to be informed so they're able to vote with their feet. Without knowing the key terms of the card and without knowing them ahead of time, it's impossible for that to happen. We're also launching Ask CFPB prepaid cards to help consumers understand this fast-growing product. Ask CFPB is an interactive online tool with easy-to-understand answers to some of the consumers' frequently asked questions. Ask CFPB prepaid cards includes more than 80 questions and answers from our staff experts. These new entries give consumers an overview of prepaid cards and help address questions about obtaining, reloading, and using prepaid cards. And by the way, you can go and see these on our website at consumerfinance.gov. And if you see questions that you think should be there but are not, you can suggest them to us. This is an interactive tool. And if you think there's any concern or edits or issues with any of the answers we provide, you can make those suggestions as well, and we will take those into account and make corrections as needed, or simplifications, or whatever you may suggest. So safety and transparency. These are and should be important hallmarks of all consumer financial products and services. As part of our rulemaking here, we will explore how best to extend these basic protections to prepaid card holders whose funds may be at risk. We're working to provide even-handed oversight of all of the consumer financial markets. We are committed here to a careful and constructive rulemaking process based on broad input and grounded on all the data we can assemble around these issues, and we welcome that from all sources. Your comments and ideas, and those of everyone else who takes the time to share their perspectives with us, will inform our ultimate decisions about how best to regulate prepaid cards in order to protect consumers. We look forward today to a frank discussion and a productive result eventually, both for consumers and for the honest businesses that seek to serve them well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Cordray, for the remarks. At this time, I'd like to invite all of the panelists to the table. The CFPB's Deputy Director Raj Date will lead our panel of experts through presentations and Q&A.
Excellent. Good afternoon. My name is Raj Date, and I serve as the Deputy Director of the CFPB. Thank you for the water, Director Cordray. First, thank you for being here. As Director Cordray just mentioned, we have, and we are privileged to have, a quite important mission at the CFPB. And it is a mission that we take quite seriously. We're very serious about what we do. But we're also serious about how we do it. And core to how we do our work are the principles of being fact-based and being transparent. Fact-based and transparent, and that's why events like this, a field hearing like this, is so important. It allows us to get out of Washington, D.C. and be able to gather the experience, the expertise, the insight of consumers themselves, of consumer and civil rights leaders from across the country, as well as from industry participants of various business models and various sizes. It really is a terrific opportunity for us to be able to do the work that we know to be so important and to do it well. So thank you for being part of it. Why don't I just start by giving a sense of how it is that we'd like the rest of the program to work. I'm going to introduce briefly our two panels. First, over on my right, a panel of consumer and civil rights leaders. And over on my left, a panel of industry experts. We'll ask for brief remarks from each one of our panelists. We'll start starting with the panel over on my right-hand side. And we'll take the liberty for myself and my colleagues at the CFPB to just ask a few questions of the panelists at that time. At the conclusion of both of the panel's remarks and Q&A, we'll then open up the program to receive comments and statements and experiences from those of you assembled here in Durham to get your perspectives on the prepaid market and what your experiences are with respect to the product market, and how it has grown and affected consumers themselves. As you will discover as I introduce our panelists, it is a group of people with expertise and credibility, and the kinds of people that you would like to hear from all day long. But in a different and more accurate way, we don't have that time today, so I'll ask that the remarks are brief. But let me first introduce everyone. You have already met, to my immediate left, Director Rich Cordray from the CFPB. To his left, you've already met Assistant Director Zixta Martinez, who leads our Community Affairs function. To my right is Marla Blow, the Assistant Director for Card Markets. Starting over on the far to my far left is Jeremy Kuiper, who's the Managing Director of the Payment Solutions Group at Bancorp Bank. To his immediate right is Hyung Choi, the Head of Prepaid Products at Visa. And then Dan Henry, the CEO of NetSpend. Over to Marla's right is Deyanira Del Rio, who is the Associate Director of the Neighborhood Economic Development Advocacy Project, or NEDAP. Adam Rust, who's the Research Director for Reinvestment Partners. And then finally, Mr. Martin Eakes, who's the CEO of Self-Help and the Center for Responsible Lending. So why don't we begin with our Consumer and Civil Rights panel, and if you don't mind, Mr. Rust, why don't we begin with a brief opening statement from you?
Thank you, Mr. Date. So I'm Adam Rust. I'm the Director of Research at Reinvestment Partners, the author of Bank Talk, and the author of the recent paper, 8 Principles for the Reform of the Prepaid Debit Card. So I want to be clear from the start that we are advocating for the same standards across all payment systems, be it a checking account, a prepaid debit card, or even mobile payments. And if you take one thing from what I'm going to say today, it's that consumers need accounts that are simply secure, affordable, functional, and empowering. And let me tell you what that means. First, secure simply means a card that protects consumers. And so that is a card without overdraft and a card without a line of credit. We know that one of the main reasons that people come to use a prepaid card is because their expectation is that you cannot overdraw your account. And yet there are cards today that would contradict that expectation. I believe that when it's appropriate, consumers should have credit. I also believe that it is an excellent attribute that there is a product in the market today where consumers can access the formal payment system even if they don't have good credit. I think a secure card is one that comes with consumer protections, and so it is really great that the CFPB has begun rulemaking on extending coverage of Reg E to these cards. And I will further say that the cards should have FDIC insurance. Secure means that the cards come with good disclosures. I'll talk about that more later, but simply put, the disclosures need to be uniform, they need to be mandatory, and then they need to be enforced. Affordable essentially does not mean that a card has no fees, but it means a card where the fees are appropriate to the services that you receive. In other words, that you get reasonable value. I have examples of such products where the pricing is not realistic. You know, if I lose my credit card, I can have it replaced for free. If I lose my prepaid debit card, it might cost as much as $35 to replace it. That's not right. If I want to call customer service, for me it's free. If I go to my checking account, my credit card, it could cost $2 or $3 to call my prepaid debit card provider, and that's not right. Functionality is very important. Often functionality is essentially tied to cost. Often when you use a card more, you pay less. I believe that when a customer is told that their ATMs are free, but when it turns out that the card company doesn't have an adequate surcharge-free ATM network, that's not right. And then this finally all leads up to empowering, which is the key, I believe. We want cards that can be a financial home today, but that can give people the opportunity to have a deeper financial relationship as their life continues to go on. We want people to be able to build assets. We want cards with savings accounts. We don't want prepaid to be a dead end. So just in general, I'm going to close with that, but I really think that we can make a good prepaid debit card. I think the product has a lot of capability, and I'm looking forward to seeing it become all that it can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Ms. Del Rio.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me here today. And just want to echo others who have said how exciting it is to see the CFPB in action in this way, and we're really pleased to be part of this hearing. I want to just tell a little bit about NEDAP's work on prepaid cards. We are an economic justice center in New York that works with hundreds of groups, community groups and civil rights groups, as well as thousands of low-income New Yorkers each year. And we work with New Yorkers and organizations to promote fair lending, to press for bank accountability to low-income communities, and to work to eliminate the array of predatory and high-cost services that have proliferated over the past decade or more in low-income neighborhoods and communities of color, as well as immigrant communities. We became aware of prepaid cards starting in the mid-90s and have worked on this issue and tracked its many forms, the many forms of prepaid cards and issues associated with it since. One of the kinds of cards that we're talking about today are these general purpose reloadable cards, which, as you've heard, are being touted by many as substitutes for bank accounts and equitable substitutes for bank accounts, as a way to avoid the hidden overdraft fees that trapped so many people over recent years who had bank accounts, and actually expelled many people from the banking system when they couldn't repay those overdraft fees and got listed on check systems and other blacklists, and then were unable to get back into the banking system, right? And so the appeal of these cards for many makes sense, right? We hear that they're easy budgeting tools. It's a way to sort of serve as a stepping stone into a mainstream bank or other services. Unfortunately, in our experience working with groups and New Yorkers who have used these cards, is that the rhetoric has not come close to matching the reality, and that these remain an inferior and more expensive way of doing your banking than using a traditional account. So the laundry lists of high fees that prepaid card users are often hit with are well known. We typically see people paying $25 to $50 a month just on ATM fees and to swipe their card at stores to make purchases. The inferior protection, the lack of uniform protections has been addressed, which apply to other types of cards. And one of our broader concerns, and one that I hope we can think about as we look at this market, is also about whether this is actually serving to bring people into mainstream regulated financial systems, or if it's a wedge that is keeping people out. And I think that's a really important question to ask, in addition to product features and costs and things like that. We have lots of examples of problems that people face who deal with prepaid cards. Just to name a couple that I think are less known, is that increasingly people are juggling multiple cards. They may have a card in which they got their tax refund. They may have a payroll card that their employer uses to pay them. They may use a card from a store, a retail reloadable card, to make purchases. And what we hear from people is that it's really frustrating to try to figure out the different rules that apply to each card, the different ways to get your money without paying high fees, trying to figure out which cards are protected and which aren't. And it's a real challenge for people, as well as for low-wage workers, people who earn cash, who don't have direct deposit, who may have different jobs. And when you're not getting direct deposit onto the card, it can be a real challenge trying to load money onto cards. So just when we hear this notion that people are clamoring for prepaid cards, it's a hugely popular product out there, I think we have a different sense of it, which is that, like so many other high-cost products that are out there, that to a large extent this reflects banks' failure to serve low-income people and others with affordable accounts. And so there is a need out there. Certainly, whether or not this is the best way to meet that need is, I think, a separate kind of question. But the barriers to mainstream and affordable accounts is definitely real. Just in closing, there's, as hopefully we'll talk about today, there are banks entering the market looking to cut their costs and also maybe deal with other regulatory issues, which the next presenter I think will address. We have concerns and questions about that, and I think it's interesting. It could, many people are celebrating that as a way to bring down costs and provide better standards for these prepaid cards if they're offered by regulated banks rather than these other companies. There are questions, though, as to who's going to be offered prepaid cards when they walk into a branch to open an account. And we've seen in other instances people being steered to more expensive products than they qualify for. Are we going to see low-income people, new immigrants, people more on the margins who maybe need more protections and more features on their card, who are in greater need of a full traditional account, are they going to be steered into a prepaid card? And is that going to be equitable, or is it going to be inferior and more expensive? So I would just applaud again the CFPB for looking at this issue. I think we need to, when we're thinking about regulation, and we will gladly submit detailed comments to the proposed rules that were issued today by the CFPB, we really feel like we need to, as across the board, really demand a high bar for this market, and not just look at it as how do we improve a flawed product, how do we create something that's better than the worst out there, or that's better than nothing, but how do we create a really strong product that truly meets needs and that moves us toward a banking system that we want to have in this country. Thank you.
Mr. Eads. Good afternoon. The Center for Responsible Lending is a policy and research nonprofit organization that works to protect homeownership and family wealth. I want to start with the following premise. In terms of technology and hence the ultimate product core costs, general purpose prepaid cards are indistinguishable from debit cards offered in a checkless banking account. Both prepaid cards and debit cards must maintain a database of individual accounts. Both must access the same payments network and technology through a member bank of a funds transfer network like Visa or MasterCard. The biggest differences between prepaid and debit cards are differences not in technology, but are differences in regulation, what some people call regulatory arbitrage. A couple examples of regulatory arbitrage between bank providers of checklist debit card accounts and currently unregulated or less regulated prepaid card providers include the following. Debit cards have periodic written statements of account under Regulation E. Regulated debit card providers have mandated minimum capital requirements and FDIC insurance. Debit cards have consumer protections for lost cards and unauthorized card usage. Prepaid cards are exempt from the Durham interchange requirements, at least for the smaller rent-a-charter banks. So I want to focus on three things. For a prepaid card to meet the promise of serving underserved people, I believe it has to have at least the following three key features or requirements. The first is that it must have no mandatory arbitration clauses in the account. The second is that there be no tie-in to debt products either prior to the prepaid card load or after the card has been fully expended. And finally, that there be no penalty fees such as NSF or overdraft fees. First, arbitration. I pulled last night the account disclosure for NetSpend, one of the largest prepaid card providers. The customers must read and agree to these terms before signing up for a NetSpend prepaid card online. I challenge any person in this room to actually read this microscopic print that has 6 full pages on a single front page and 6 pages on the back. Now, I talked to Mr. Henry before the hearing. He said if this is correct, which I believe it is because I pulled it down last night, that he'll have this fixed before the end of the week. My point is this: buried on page 10 in this microscopic print is a requirement that any dispute be solved by mandatory arbitration and only as an individual, not as a group action. For many cases of abuse or discrimination, the dollar amount is so small, $200 or $300, that no single individual can ever enforce their claim. So either you have it one way or the other. You're fully regulated, or you allow consumers to join together to get redress. Debt product tie-in. A prepaid card should have no tie-in to a debt product whatsoever. On the front end, using a payday loan to fund a prepaid card is an invitation to abuse. If prepaid card fees take 10% of the balance on the prepaid card to eventually convert that balance to cash, you will have converted a 450% annual interest rate payday loan into a 700% APR loan, thereby circumventing state and federal usury restrictions on the lending, protecting military personnel and others. A tie-in with payday lending is simply unacceptable, and a prepaid card that offers its own payday lending-like product is simply unacceptable. Overdraft fees. The single most cited reason for consumer choice of a prepaid card is to limit spending to the funds actually present in the account. The very label prepaid card communicates a promise that the account cannot be overdrawn, which by definition would otherwise be a postpaid card. Overdraft should not be permitted in any form whatsoever on a prepaid card. Prohibiting overdraft and NSF fees is the single most important step for CFPB to take at this time. If a customer needs debt, let them get a regulated credit card which is designed for that purpose. Thank you, Mr. Cordray, Mr. Date, and CFPB staff for holding this important field hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for, I think, just a few questions of this panel. Zixta, would you mind leading off?
Adam, this question is for you. In your view, how best can the CFPB address the consumer protection issues in the prepaid market?
One of the big gaps that I see right now is the lack of effective disclosures. It's very, very hard to compare different products. And Martin showed an example of a disclosure form that's very difficult. I think it goes further than that. Most of these cards are bought in stores. If it was truly a free market, there will be a lot of cards in the store. But again and again, we're seeing card companies set up exclusive arrangements with stores. This week, Green Dot and Netspend both signed exclusive agreements with one of the dollar stores. And it's similar with Walgreens and CVS. This means that when we design a disclosure, just listing the fees probably isn't enough, because consumers can then see the fees on their card, but they'll have no idea whether or not that card is a high-cost card or a low-cost card. And what I really believe we need to do, if you look at the EPA Energy Guide standards, they will, if you buy a water heater or a dishwasher, it's simple. They will estimate the cost of that dishwasher, and they'll also suggest to you that there is a lowest price and a highest price dishwasher. If you go into a store and you only see one option, or maybe two, you might have the choice of two bad options. So, in the store is really important. The disclosure should be about product choice, but also about product use. We really need to emphasize to people that direct deposit, that going in network for an ATM, that this is the way to save money and to build assets. In the store is a hard way to disclose because there's just limited space. I think we need to recognize that low-income consumers, there's an exception to our expectation about how they access information, that the smartphone technology was now included in, you go into a Cricket or a Boost mobile store and there are Android phones for sale there. And so a lot of low-income consumers are saying, I don't want internet, I'm not going to have a landline phone, but I'm going to have a smartphone. And that smartphone technology allows us to help people who are in the store bridge to better disclosures. And here's what I fear if we don't have action on disclosures. One possibility is that we'll continue to have non-uniform standards that make it impossible to compare. Another real possibility is that a private entity will come up with excellent programming, perhaps an app, something that allows people to compare and get a good sense of disclosures, but the ultimate revenue source from that will be a lead generation system. And so then we'll see people being told this is the best prepaid card, but actually it's just the best prepaid card that they're getting paid to sponsor. That's why I think disclosures are an immediate, important issue.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Del Rio, can I pick up on this notion of products and product markets being ways in which to mainstream otherwise unbanked or underbanked customers into the financial mainstream as opposed to creating a wedge? Would you mind just talking about how it is that this product might be an affirmative way be able to be a means by which mainstreaming occurs as opposed to a wedge?
Sure. Well, so one of the things that we feel is that there are, for example, now that banks are entering the market, is this going to be something that maybe is offered to someone who's had problems managing checks or having bank accounts in the past, which would seem to be maybe a reasonable interim product to offer somebody. But then graduating them up into a full service account would be something, an example where we think it's important. Also connecting people to savings accounts and other needed services, which right now largely don't exist on these cards in spite of the talk of them among many.
Thank you. I know that we're short of time, but Mr. Eakes, if I will take the liberty of just following up on one thing. You laid out some clear sort of sort of negative attributes in your view about the product and what should not be contained within them. Would you mind talking a little bit in a more affirmative way? Presumably the market could evolve in a variety of different alternative paths from here. What, in your view, would be the best one or two ways for the market to affirmatively evolve to best serve consumers who are otherwise underserved?
So if the oversight agencies don't get in the way and create artificial distinctions, these two markets will converge. Checklist checking accounts accessed by a debit card with no overdraft fees will converge with prepaid cards. There's no reason for them to be separate. And in fact, a bank account that it has to be loaded with money if you're going to be taking something out of it without an overdraft line of credit. So right now we're seeing artificial incentives. The largest banks are motivated to get into prepaid card because there is a rule for interchange fees that says each transaction as a large bank, you can only receive 20 cents of interchange. But if you're a small bank or if you have an exemption for a prepaid card that you meet, the bank can receive in current terms about 40 cents on each prepaid card transaction. So for very large institutions that have tens of millions of accounts, they have an artificial incentive to move to prepaid cards. If they're going to do that, then I think it's appropriate, as the Fed proposed and put in place, that those prepaid cards for very large banks cannot have overdraft fees associated with it. So my real mission in life is to see the unbanked and underbanked be served appropriately by the huge advances we've had in technology. We have the ability to have very low-cost accounts serve people who need to be paying a very low cost per month. But the technology has never been realized because the abuses in the marketplace, first with overdraft fees for bank checking accounts. Why would you offer an account that really is the marginal cost that the technology allows you to do when you can make thousands of dollars on each account by having what are tricks and traps on checking accounts? What we need to make sure is that prepaid card, as it moves towards this convergence, as it becomes an on-ramp for families that really can't afford the current provision, whether it's paper statements, whether it's things that actually cost money. So you can't ask a bank or a provider to provide the service for free or for a loss. The question is, how do we get products out in the marketplace that serve very low-income, unbanked individuals with very, very low cost? And I think we're going to see mobile phones, we're going to see prepaid cards, and we're going to see debit cards that are protected that have as minimal cost as possible so that those families can actually access the payment system in a very safe way. And I think it's a really exciting time, but because we haven't laid the boundary rules for the various product delivery mechanisms, we haven't realized a single one of the potential benefits of having networks where the bandwidth cost has come, it's down 20-fold. And the computer capability of managing individual accounts is almost nil now, the cost per account. It should be that we can serve each of the 30 million unbanked and underbanked families in America with a basic, simple account that can be accessed by text or by your phone and other ways that doesn't require human intervention. To me, that's what's really exciting. And I believe you guys will get it right. If you don't, then we'll sort of futz around for another decade, but we're counting on you.
So thank you. So don't futz around is what I'm taking from that. Why don't we turn for opening remarks from our second panel. Mr. Henry, can we start with you?
Great. Thank you. Director Cordray, Deputy Director Date, I'd like to thank you and your outstanding staff for the opportunity to appear before you today. I'm Dan Henry, Chief Executive Officer of NetSpend, one of the nation's leading providers of general-purpose reloadable prepaid debit cards for underbanked consumers. Our stated mission is to empower consumers with the convenience, security, and freedom to be self-banked. We are proud of what we do and committed to collaborating with the CFPB, the consumer advocacy community, and our industry peers to promote a clear and effective regulatory framework for our industry and the consumers we serve. We are very pleased that the CFPB is stepping in to help clarify the consumer protection standards that apply to prepaid cards. We at Netspend and most of our leading competitors already adhere to the same requirements as traditional bank checking accounts under the Fed Regulation E, including its disclosure requirements, protection against unauthorized transactions. We believe we are required to do so under both Reg E and the Treasury Department's rules for acceptance of direct deposits from the federal government. Our cardholders also benefit from FDIC insurance on a pass-through basis. We encourage the CFPB to take the measures we have long supported, clarifying the extent that it is currently unclear that the consumer protections of Reg E and FDIC insurance apply to general purpose reloadable cards. We also support CFPB's efforts to help promote consumer usage of prepaid savings accounts, such as the 5% savings product we offer our cardholders. We are confident, based on our discussions so far with the CFPB staff, that CFPB will undertake its rulemaking in a fact-based, objective manner that will focus on making the standards for consumer disclosure more uniform while avoiding substantive product limitations in a way that hinders innovation and competition in an extremely dynamic industry that for the first time is bringing working Americans the kinds of bank accounts they deserve. According to the FDIC, there are 60 million underbanked consumers in the United States. Why is this? Well, most traditional bank products and fee structures really are not designed for low-income consumers who typically maintain very low balances. It may surprise you to hear that of Netspend's more than 1 million cardholders on direct deposit, more than 5,000 of these cardholders are employees of Bank of America, Chase, or Citibank. Our customers are typically working Americans who want control, security, and convenience, and who have not had good experience with banks. They are people who deserve the same quality of financial services as the more affluent customers of traditional banks enjoy. The reason we have our customers is because we provide them with a better solution, designed to meet their unique financial services needs. Bear in mind that the Netspend card, like the similar products of our competition, is a bank account. It is FDIC insured on a pass-through basis, subject to the same consumer protections and compliance requirements as a checking account, provides access to a host of financial services, including flexible fee plans, a 5% savings account, free person-to-person account transfers, free direct deposit of payroll and benefits, bill payment services, real-time account alerts to let consumers always know how much money they have to the penny. More than 100,000 brick-and-mortar locations where consumers can add funds to their cards, many times 7 days a week. Many of those locations are open 24 hours a day. And a host of financial literacy and budgeting tools. We have also developed what we believe is the most consumer-friendly overdraft program in the country that includes buffers and a grace period that result in most overdraft transactions avoiding any fee whatsoever. And when these fees are charged, they are less than half of most banks and credit unions in this country. Our product is a bank account, but one in which we have stripped out the real estate costs and the personnel costs of bank branches, leverage the infrastructure of non-bank retailers to reach underbanked consumers, and leverage technology to build a product platform and network that provides these consumers with utility, security, dignity, and access that they have never had before. Due to fierce competition in our industry, the prices of reloadable prepaid cards are trending down, while at the same time, the price of low-balance checking accounts are trending up. Many of the consumers we try to serve no longer have access to checking accounts because they're among the 19% of U.S. adults who can't qualify for an account because they are in the check systems or the telecheck database. I believe those of us who serve the low-income population in the United States have a higher standard of which to adhere. To truly serve these consumers, we need to be allowed to compete on a level playing field with the traditional bank products that have failed them. We believe it's important that any new regulation of prepaid cards enhances consumers' freedom of choice, not limit it. We are committed to developing more effective ways to communicate with our customers about the fees, terms, and conditions of our products, but limitations on the products, such as restrictions on the types of fees that can be charged, will only harm consumers and stifle innovation. We look forward to working with the CFPB, consumer advocates, and our industry to facilitate the development of financial service products that serve underbanked Americans that have largely been left behind by traditional bank products.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Mr. Choi.
Thank you. and good afternoon. I'm Hyung Choi, and I'm the head of U.S. prepaid products for Visa Inc. I'd like to thank the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau for inviting Visa to participate in today's important discussion about prepaid cards. We're encouraged. The Bureau is seeking information with an eye towards considering rules that foster informed use of prepaid cards that support delivering the level of protections consumers expect from electronic payments. We hope today's community discussion will be the beginning of a productive dialogue on this topic. I'd like to first explain a little bit about who Visa is and what we do. Visa is a payments technology company. We connect financial institutions, merchants, governments, and consumers around the world with products and services that are designed to make payments faster, more convenient, more reliable, and more secure. To connect these entities, we operate a powerful global transaction network and provide advanced security and risk management that has kept fraud to historically low levels. Visa offers a comprehensive set of payment product platforms for card issuers to deploy, including debit, credit, and prepaid. This choice furthers our goal of bringing digital currency to more people in more places worldwide. Although we create and manage the product platform, Visa does not issue cards, set cardholder fees or interest rates, or make loans to consumers. The consumer and merchant relationships are managed by financial institution clients. Our business is driven by consumer and merchant desire for more efficient payments. The most significant force driving our industry remains the secular shift away from cash and checks toward electronic payments. To that end, Visa designed prepaid products to complement existing credit and debit products by providing an option to access a designated pool of funds without the need for an individual bank account or line of credit. Within the prepaid platform, there are a range of programs designed to meet highly specific needs, including everyday money management, known as general purpose reloadable or GPR cards, government disbursements, payroll, rebates and incentives, employee benefits, and healthcare expenses, and perhaps the best known use, gift giving. Without question, this is a rapidly evolving product category. I believe Visa and the industry generally are building and growing the prepaid category and products with the consumer at the center. The vast majority of practitioners supporting these products are doing it with the consumer's best interests in mind. They recognize the financial needs of the consumers using these products and the need to ensure consumer confidence in using the products. The prepaid category will only continue to grow if we maintain and build consumer value and trust in the products. Visa backs prepaid products with the same security, reliability, and convenience as credit and debit cards, beyond what the current regulation requires us to do. These funds are secured and protected by financial institutions and are subject to state and federal regulation, which vary by type of product. Visa prepaid products are issued by regulated financial institutions, and they are protected by Visa's zero liability protection, which ensures consumers are not responsible for unauthorized charges on their card. Visa also applies the same sophisticated risk and fraud screening to prepaid cards. This important technology has kept fraud in the Visa system to historic low levels, just 6 cents out of every $100 transacted globally. Prepaid cards can be a valuable tool to provide access to the financial mainstream for the millions of Americans who don't have a traditional bank account, as well as provide additional value to bank consumers. In conclusion, prepaid delivers an important financial service to millions of consumers and is backed by Visa with the same security, reliability, and convenience of using Visa credit and Visa debit cards. We will continue to actively work with financial institutions to deliver choice to consumers, businesses, and governments who use prepaid products. And we are looking forward to working with the Bureau to foster a greater understanding of these products, their protections, and benefits. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kuiper.
Thank you. Director Cordray, Deputy Director Date, Assistant Director Blow, and Assistant Director Martinez, I wish to thank you for the opportunity to participate in the field hearing today. I am Jeremy Kuiper, Managing Director of the Bancorp Bank Payment Solutions Group. I oversee all functions for the bank relating to prepaid cards. I have participated in the payments industry for more than 25 years, and I have witnessed the dramatic growth of prepaid card products over the last decade. Bancorp has assets of $3.18 billion and is a founding member of the Network Branded Prepaid Card Association. Prepaid cards are popular because they address an important consumer need, providing secure payments that are safer than cash. One thing I've heard historically is that these products are not protected against loss or theft. This is simply not true. I reviewed a number of the terms and conditions associated with all the major general purpose reloadable programs, and every single one provided protections for cardholders against loss, theft, and unauthorized transactions. The Bancorp Bank Payment Solutions Group has issued tens of millions of prepaid cards across all segments and product types of the prepaid marketplace and to consumers across all socioeconomic levels. These programs vary dramatically in their features and functionality depending upon the goals of the program. Prepaid cards have opened the door to the card-based financial system to many of the approximately 60 million Americans who are unbanked or underbanked. Many in these groups have limited access or no access to bank branches or ATMs in their neighborhoods. Convenient access to prepaid cards has been a key driver of their popularity. More recently, we have observed prepaid card usage trending upward among Generation Y consumers. These consumers choose prepaid cards both as a way to avoid overspending and debt, and because the product better fits their needs than the traditional checking account. I believe this broader adoption of prepaid products speaks to the true value that these cards offer to consumers. Contrary to earlier statements, prepaid cards are in fact currently afforded strong consumer protections. For example, virtually all bank-issued reloadable card programs qualify for FDIC deposit insurance coverage on a pass-through basis. Bancorp and other issuers support requiring FDIC insurance protection for GPR cards. Additionally, most programs provide some or all of the protections required for other types of cards under the Electronic Funds Transfer Act and Regulation E. These protections apply in modified form to payroll cards and any prepaid card programs that receive federal payments. Bancorp is supportive of the extension of Regulation E as it applies to payroll cards. However, we do wish to engage in dialogue with the Bureau regarding the proper provisional credit structure for this product. I'm concerned with studies that have been done by consumer organizations that have been proven to be based on false assumptions and unrealistic consumer usage patterns. These studies suggest our consumers are unsophisticated and uneducated. That is simply not the case. I worry that if these false assumptions are adopted by the Bureau, it may result in misguided regulatory environment. Finally, Bancorp stands ready to work with the Bureau and all constituents, prepaid consumers, consumer advocacy groups, and others, relative to work in the evolution of prepaid card disclosures. In conclusion, I wish to thank you again for the opportunity to share my thoughts and experience working with participants in the prepaid card industry, and certainly welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for, well, strictly speaking, we don't have time, but let's anyway just have time for just a couple of questions. Marla, would you like to lead us?
So Dan, just want to ask you a question about the consumer. Your organization does a lot of marketing research, and we've seen the rapid growth in this industry, and very curious about who this consumer is, what drives the appeal, what do you see as the real underpinnings of the growth in this business?
Thanks, Marla. This consumer, and I really appreciate this opportunity because before we came in this room, I was able to spend a fair amount of time with 9 of our customers here in the area. And those customers, they are mothers, fathers, veterans, and friends of mine. You know, I can't tell you how much I enjoyed meeting these folks, and every time I talk to our customers, because you know, who they are hardworking Americans. They're not looking for a handout. They're not looking for protection. We have customers, they've been with us for 5, 6, 7 years. I can assure you, they're well aware of the fees on our product. But more importantly, they're well aware of the features and functionality on our product. Okay? They know that with a NetSpend card, when you sign up for direct deposit, you have access to your funds when they post, not when they settle. There's not a bank in this country who does that. They're aware that they get 5% interest on their savings account. I don't know anybody, any bank, that offers 5% interest on savings. The feature that I've heard today from our customers, and I've heard for years, that they love the most is our instant wireless alerts. Anytime there's any activity on your NetSpend account, you can receive a text message free of charge, which tells you your balance to the penny with details of how much you just spent and where and what time. So you think about a spending control and a fraud control, it's phenomenal. Director Cordray, you asked at the beginning of your speech, try to imagine your life without a checking account. Try to imagine your life without a checking account. How do you send money to a friend or relative? You go to a money transfer location, you stand in line, you pay $15 to $30 to send money, many times just across town. With NetSpend, you can send money up to $1,000 instantaneously and for free with a simple text message on your phone from one NetSpend cardholder to another. So we talk so much about the fees of the card, but we don't look at what savings are generated for this consumer, not only in avoiding money transfer fees, but just think of your life again, Director Cordray, the check cashing fees that one avoids. I would say that close to $10 billion were loaded on our cards last year through direct deposit. Okay? Based on average check cashing fees, we save consumers over $300 million on check cashing fees. Okay? Now, what do they do once it's directly deposited on their account? They pay their utility bills on the phone for free. You know? So I think we all agree, and I've heard that say time and time again, is that prepaid does have the opportunity to create a solution that's absolutely meaningful for this consumer that has been overlooked or taken advantage of for decades by financial services industry that really, it's designed to serve consumers with money. You know, traditional retail banking structure, a retail bank branch can serve about, at most, 5,000 customers, but it needs $20 to $30 million of deposits to be justified. You take our customer base of 2.3 million cardholders, you need 450 branches to serve them. But with the average daily balance of our customers, there's enough deposits to maybe support 6 or 7 branches. So, you know, I'm, again, believe that what this industry is doing is exactly, Martin, what you are calling for, which is leveraging technology and solutions and services in the world of the internet to provide solutions to low-income consumers that traditional banks are just not designed to provide. And so I don't want to sound critical of traditional banks at all. That's not what I'm trying to say, is that just the business model of traditional banks will not allow this to be served. And so before you cut me off, I just want to say thank you to Lee and Veronica and Regina and Kaida and Daryl and Darnell, William, Clarence, and Deidre. If you stand up real quickly so you can let everybody know who the customers are of this product. I appreciate very much your time.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. I wonder if I might just ask for Mr. Kuiper, just for if you could answer in maybe a minute, which is not going to be easy. Given your business model, presumably you work with a number of different program managers. You're you happen to be in a seat, therefore, to see a number of different innovations over time. Each of this panel and Mr. Eakes all talked about sort of the value and pace of innovation for this product and for this customer segment. You talk about, from your point of view, kind of the trajectory of innovations within the product market from this point forward. What do you characterize as sort of the themes?
No, I appreciate that, and you act like you've known me a long time trying to keep me to a minute. But so relative as far as innovation, prepaid is innovation, and many of our program manager partners continue to work on focusing on innovating how they improve the customer experience and the functionality that they deliver. NetSpend is a classic example of that and one of the leaders. But relative as far as in that innovation, we will continue to see, for example, remote deposit capture being developed and expanded relative to prepaid cards to increase the utility and convenience to the consumer. Relative to mobile and wallet applications, again, utilizing technology to improve the customer experience, its convenience, and the functionality of these products. And you'll continue to see, for example, rewards and promotion products, the continued enhancement relative to savings. As far as, again, NetSpend certainly has that. Others are certainly emulating that in the marketplace, and you'll continue to see that expand as well. But you'll Prepaid in its very DNA is innovation, and you'll continue to see these and others advance relative, all about increasing the value relative to the consumer.
Thank you. I've learned over time to always give Marla Blow the last word. So Marla, one closing question for this panel?
Sure, I'll pass the closing word on to Hyung. I just want to ask, based on where you sit and the data that Visa has access to, being able to see broadly usage patterns and the trends here, what are the things that you think about as sort of potential issues? What kind of keeps you awake at night as you look at this industry and think about where it's headed?
Thanks, Marla, and I'll try to keep it within the minute.
59 seconds.
So I'm going to come back to a general theme and just the notion of what keeps us awake, or what keeps us in terms of top of mind. What's important for us, and what are we thinking about? And I'll come back to a theme that you heard me reference in the opening remarks, and that's about consumer choice. If you think about prepaid and where it is today, prepaid is an electronic payment product that's very much in its infancy. There's still much work to be done to bring the value of prepaid and electronic payments to the millions of deserving Americans, as Director Cordray also mentioned in his opening remarks. Visa supports transparency for prepaid products and protections for Visa prepaid account holders. But one of the strengths of prepaid is the fact that it's not a one-size-fits-all product. Therefore, it's important that any of the regulations that are contemplated are respectful of not only the different consumers using prepaid, but also in the context of the different prepaid products being used and for what reasons. So it all comes back for us to that whole idea of how do we preserve and maximize consumer choice.
Thank you, Mr. Choi, and thank you to all of our panelists. If you would join me in thanking them for their time. We'll now move to the next phase of our field hearing today, which Zixta Martinez will lead us through. But before we do that, we can excuse our two sets of panelists and thank them again.
Yes. Thanks. I also want to take a moment to thank those joining via live stream today. You can follow us on Twitter at CFPB. The hashtag for this event is prepaid. And now it's time to hear from you as community leaders, advocates, industry representatives, and residents. The open mic portion of today's field hearing is an opportunity for the CFPB to hear about your experience with prepaid cards, what is working well in this market, and what could be improved. This is a great turnout, but it means that we'll have to limit each person's statement to about 2 minutes. You will, however, have an additional opportunity to share your views with CFPB, even if you don't get to the microphone. Today, the CFPB published a Federal Register notice requesting your comments. Everyone who attended this hearing and RSVP'd by email will receive a web link to the notice for comments. If you didn't share your email address with us, that's okay. You can visit our website, consumerfinance.gov, where you can find the notice. What we learn from you is very valuable to the CFPB, so thank you for taking the time to visit with us today. And why don't we get started with the open mic portion of this field hearing. I will call the name of the individuals who signed up to share their experience with us. And the first person is Mr. William Cross. Will you please stand up, sir?
Thank you very much for inviting me here today and to comment on my experiences. Hold that for me, please. My experience is like this. Number one, I'd like to thank David Price's office because I'm a veteran and he's helped me immensely. I'm a 100% disabled veteran. I don't know how many of you panel members have experienced working all your life very hard, fighting for your country, and being disabled, having all your bills paid, and then not having any income, surviving on your savings, getting in credit trouble because you can't work, because you're in the VA hospital, and you're about dead, and actually been declared dead, and you go to the bank, and said, I'd like to open up a checking account so I can receive my benefits. And they said, oh, no, you can't do that. You got bad credit. I had a life that was almost taken from this country. But I can't open a checking account because I almost died for defending my country. Now I have bad credit, sir. Protection? The banks didn't give me any protection, but the doors are open because I almost gave my life for them who barely knew me. That quarter I gave you is grace, and it's by the grace of God that I'm here. It's more than you had when you came here, because whatever you had, it added on to that. NetSpend opened up a door for me to help me to pay my bills, to receive the money that I received for my wounds, for my service, for this country. They allowed me to get into the payment system that exists today because you have to pay your electric bill, your gas bill, your mortgage, your car notes via electronic transfer. People don't take cash anymore. To open up a bank account and not have the astronomical fees that I had to have $1,200 in the bank and keep that balance there. Sir, you had a piece of paper with all those rules and regulations on it. You said it was about 7 pages, 12 pages.
Mr. Cross,
Yes.
thank you very much for your testimony, and thank you very much
You said
for
2
your
minutes, right?
service
I have
to
about 30 seconds.
our country.
I have about 30 seconds. You said 2 minutes, right?
Yes.
I have an aviator watch with time on it. Sir, you said 12 pages. I went to a bank, Bank of America, to open up an account. They had a book of regulations that I had to go by. Not 12 pages. So I'm just saying, it's a good product. Regulated it properly, and it'll help a lot of people.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. Mr. Michael de los Santos.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Michael de los Santos with Reinvestment Partners. In addition to being a consumer advocate on financial issues over the last 5 years, I'm also a user of prepaid cards. In addition to the traditional banking products, my family also has prepaid debit cards that we use. So I'm not here to attack the product. I think it's a good product that serves a good purpose for a lot of underbanked and non-banked families. But I want to focus on 2 issues I think that are important when we talk about these cards as being a gateway for low-wealth families back into the financial services industry. And that one, there needs to be an incentive to save on the cards so that way low-wealth families have a secure, affordable way to build wealth and assets. And secondly, and more important, is that to not strip that wealth by having credit products available on these prepaid cards as well. Whether it's predatory or not, they don't need predatory products on these prepaid accounts. We already have a plastic card with credit available on it called a credit card, and that's where credit should stay. And prepaid debit cards without credit options are a better service to our low-wealth families than another credit product that can attack savings or where they hold their money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. de los Santos. Ms. Donna Gallagher. Ms. Renee Wall. Mr. Ruben and Ms. Elizabeth Davis. Mr. Tom Feltner.
Thank you, Director Cordray and staff from the CFPB. My name is Tom Feltner. I'm the Vice President of Public Policy and Communications at the Chicago-based Woodstock Institute. And I just wanted to address a couple issues that we've thought through as we consider the consumer protections and issues of access and security for prepaid cards. I think it's really important to keep in mind what we've heard today about how GPR cards, general purpose reloadable cards, are for all, in the vast majority of cases, are a collection of features that are already widely available on checking accounts. And so we think that if there's a consumer protection that's available to checking customers, then it should also be available to GPR customers. And there's a practice that's unacceptable for checking on checking accounts, and that practice should also be unacceptable for prepaid cards. I just want to touch on three issues very quickly. When customers swipe a card, whether they're paying now with a debit card, paying later with a credit card, or they're paying with funds that they've already put on their GPR card, those funds should be insured. The fund availability process should be clear, and consumers should be protected from fraud. And I was really happy to see, most of those issues addressed in this morning's CFPB proposal. I think second, we feel that credit products of any kind undermine the value proposition of the GPR card. And when you offer high-cost, non-productive forms of credit through GPR cards, it really undermines that value proposition of that product as a strictly transactional product. And I think it also, at the same time, it really threatens to exploit state or federal banking preemption law to circumvent a lot of the strong consumer protections that states have established for short-term credit, such as those we've worked very hard for over the last decade in Illinois. And then I think finally we need to make sure that there's a process in place so that GPR customers aren't relegated to a second-class financial system. And I think whenever GPR products are offered, they should be offered alongside any other product that a consumer can qualify for. And if a consumer does not currently qualify for or is interested in a checking account, then there should be a process in place to make sure that those customers can be referred up to a checking account if that's what they choose to engage in later. So I think if we can address those three issues, we see a lot of promise in the GPR product. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Eric Jefferson.
Good afternoon. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Eric Jefferson, graduate of North Carolina Central University. About 2 to 3 weeks ago in the mail, I was sent a card that I did not even apply for. It had my name on it. It had a preferred card holder under my name. The card is actually right here. It's called the Achieve debit card. It has a few benefits that come with it on it that says free text message alerts, free online banking, free direct deposit, and no overdraft fees. The only thing that, when you owe the bank money or if you've ever been broke, the best word that you can hear is free. So I saw that it said free to activate, so I activated the card because you have to go to a money.green card location, upload money on like the other prepaid cards. But the only thing that there was nothing else sent in the envelope in regards to any extra disclosures or fees. So when I try to use the card for my direct deposit, because it comes with a direct deposit number and a routing number, for my payroll at my new job, I find out about all of the fees that I didn't know. $25 to replace the card, a $9 monthly fee, a $2.95 fee just to get a paper balance of the statement, and also a $1 fee every time it's swiped per PIN transaction. The only thing I can say in regards to criticism about prepaid cards is just be transparent. In any fine print or any kind of print that you can read in any organization or entity, just be transparent about it. Whatever the fees are, let people know up front. I am also with Verizon as far as phone companies go. Everybody knows Verizon is very, very high. Verizon also has great customer service. But all of their prices, Verizon's upfront about it. So I want to close by saying that the fine print should be see-through because every organization, every entity should be transparent. So any fine print that comes on in any mail, everything should be transparent because all of the fees that come with the disclosures of any card should be known up front. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Jefferson. Lonnie Green. Lucy Gorham.
Thank you very much and welcome to Durham. I'm Lucy Gorham. I'm a senior program director at MDC, a Durham nonprofit concerned with equity and opportunity. We run 2 programs where we prepare tax returns for over 25,000 households each year. This gives us a really intimate view of the financial lives of a lot of low and moderate income households, including what I could only describe as the wreckage of a financial services system which also often doesn't meet their needs. Auto loans are often abusive, foreclosure issues because of having to put medical debt on credit cards and so on and so forth. So we do our best to direct these households to better financial products, and in fact, we offer a very good prepaid card through our VITA and Benefit Bank sites. The issue that I see is that whether a product is good or not is really up to the provider. There is no overarching regulatory system which is addressing or providing a bottom line for how products can be offered on the market. So, of course, that's where you come in. And I hope that in addition to providing a stronger regulatory framework, you'd also consider working with Treasury to have a national prepaid card that could be offered at tax time to any consumer, that could be a national model for what a really strong prepaid card could look like, with a savings pocket, FDIC insured, and so on and so forth, as the consumer protection side of the panel mentioned to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gorham. Ms. Helen Savage.
My name is Helen Savage. I'm with AARP in North Carolina. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. AARP has 6 suggestions that we would really like to see applied to this product so that they're meeting a promise and not creating pitfalls for folks. The first one is we'd like to see the expansion of the Electronic Funds Transfer Act and Regulation E to include all prepaid cards. This is important to limit fraud losses, provide a dispute resolution process, and create disclosure requirements. We also suggest that issuing banks that provide prepaid cards should be required to meet the FDIC pass-through requirements. And our third recommendation is to develop a standardized disclosure form that allows consumers to be able to identify all the costs and the fees and the features and be able to compare among the various options. I agree with the suggestion that said that overdraft and shortage fees should be prohibited. And another aspect is to prohibit direct deposit account advances with high fees. We do not need this product to turn into a version of payday lending. Advocates in this state fought so hard to get rid of storefront payday lending. We don't want to see it return in any form. And my final point is that large employers and government agencies that are turning to prepaid cards as a way to pay salaries or a way to provide benefits like Social Security really have an obligation to negotiate for the very best card, the very strongest card, the very best deal they can get on behalf of their customers. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ms. Savage. Ladonia Turk.
I'm a NetSpend user, and I've been for like 5 years now, and I actually enjoy using NetSpend. I can get my direct deposit free through my company with no charge. I can virtually pay all my bills either online or in person. They have like a virtual account that I have that's like 2 separate totally card numbers. So I can either use that for online, and I can use my regular for in-store purchases. And another thing I like is I receive text. So as soon as I make a transaction, that text is automatically sent to my phone, like within seconds. And I also know my balance every day. So I think it's pretty good to keep prepaid, but certain stuff like FDIC, NetSpend does have, and that was one thing that reason why I went with them. Because I've searched for a bunch of prepaid cards, and some of them don't have FDIC. I like my money to be guaranteed to get back to me if something happens. I don't know about anybody else, but that's just me in particular.
Thank you, Ms. Turk. Mr. Craig Saperstein. Ms. Cassandra King.
I thought you guys skipped me. Well, my name is Cassandra King, and I'm an agent as well as a user of a prepaid card. I do enjoy my prepaid card. I will say for my customers, we are very upfront with the fees that are attached with the prepaid card. We let them know the monthly fees. We let them know the load fees, the unload fees, the withdrawal fees. And most of my customers are actually satisfied with the ICE card. We had 5 of them here today, but unfortunately they had to leave a little bit early. Except for one. I enjoy it. I get direct deposit free of charge, automatic withdrawals free of charge. Online payments are free. And that's, I think, a tool that we also use to sell that card. A lot of our customers need to pay their bills ASAP. And so instead of them driving around to the venue to actually pay their bills, we'll say, well, hey, we'll load your card, pay it over the phone for you. And I think that's what a lot of customers are looking for, convenience, easy fees. And I don't think it's just the unbankable. I think it's a little bit of liberty, because some people are afraid to go into banks. And where I am, we're open Monday through Saturday, 8 to 8, 12 hours a day. So when the banks are closed, we're also open on holidays when the banks are closed. And I service my customers. They call me their accountant the other day, because I don't think a bank is going to take as much time or as much care with a customer as an individual finance company or 24-hour check cashing or Walmart, places like that. So I am for prepaid cards. I do feel like there maybe should be some laws as far as the fees go. They should be minimal, but I am a customer. I enjoy it, and I believe that all of my customers that come to my business enjoy the prepaid card.
Thank you, Ms. King. Mr. Al Ripley. Ms. Belinda Wilson. Oh, wait a minute. We have Mr. Ripley.
There we go. Can we hear me? Thank you. I'm sorry, I was on the other side of the room. Director Cordray, and I want to thank you and your staff for coming to North Carolina and having this hearing and for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Alfred Ripley. I'm an attorney with the North Carolina Justice Center here in North Carolina, where I direct our housing and consumer project. The mission of the Justice Center is to protect the interests of low-income citizens and communities across our state. And for 18 years, the Justice Center has been working to address abusive industry practices in a variety of areas related to financial services. And while we certainly recognize there's many benefits to prepaid cards, we're also very concerned about the lack of regulations and protections against certain elements that prepaid cards can carry. We hope that you'll consider adding protections, including the following. You've already addressed today the need to insure these accounts, and we certainly hope that FDIC protection could be added to all of these accounts. We're also, as some of your panelists remarked, very concerned about arbitration clauses. We've seen numerous instances in other industry contexts where arbitration clauses can be abused and really disadvantage consumers and take away their right to any type of redress to abusive conduct. We also want to make sure that fees are adequately disclosed and revealed so that they are transparent, but not only in the sense that when you read a contract you can see what the fees are, but also so that you can compare products to each other. And so a type of transparency that enables consumers to compare these products would be very, very helpful. That being said, we also recognize that very often, unfortunately, in this marketplace serving low-income consumers, competition doesn't work the same way that it does sometimes in other industry sectors. And you can't always rely on competition to drive prices down as low as they might otherwise go. So we think that it's also important to have real limits on the fees and the amount of fees and how high they can be, when they can be charged, how frequently they can be charged, and the amounts that they can be charged. And finally, we hope that this can be a vehicle to help enable low-wealth consumers to gain access to more mainstream banking products, sort of an introductory way that consumers are able to demonstrate that they can manage their finances, handle their finances, and perhaps get access to other financial services that will be not be so costly. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Ripley. Ms. Belinda Wilson.
Piedmont Advantage Credit Union currently offers the prepaid card as an alternative for students,
travelers, and the unbanked population. The monthly fee of $4.95 is waived if they have direct deposit. If they do not have direct deposit, the $59 that they pay annually is less than 2 overdraft fees. We partner with our business sponsors, our select employee groups, to offer the prepaid card as an alternative to pay cards at a cheaper price than what they currently pay their payroll provider. Our product is great for our member owners, and it does not instill abusive practices. So we would like you to consider regulation on the fees, but also know that this is a good alternative for many consumers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Marche Clark.
Good afternoon. Mr. Cordray and panel, and to David Price, who I haven't seen in the audience, thank you for having this forum. My name is Marche Clark. I'm Director of Development with Guilford County Home Ownership Center in Greensboro, North Carolina. One of the problems, first of all, I'm not opposed to the prepaid card because I think it does have a place in our society for those who are unbanked or underbanked. My concern is I do foreclosure prevention, and already we see clients coming into our office who are using these cards and not realizing the fees that are attached to them, and who are able, before the fees are attached, are able to use those cards to make payments on their mortgage when we get a modification or other resolution. But because of the fees, when it's time to deduct the payment, they no longer can afford to make that payment. And so I think that the fees are one of the sticking points for this card, and the fact that there is no disclosure. Also, I saw senior citizens in front of me leave here, and we're talking about tying this to technology. We're also talking about transparency in the fees. Well, I'm here to tell you I'm over 40 years old, and I couldn't even read what's on the back of those forms. And so I know the senior citizens can't read it. And also, there's so many conditions and rules that there needs to be a way to address that to elderly population. I listened to this college graduate back here. If he wasn't aware of those fees and disclosures, then what makes us think somebody over 60, 70, 80 years old is going to be aware? Those who service these cards, I'd like to see that we not wait until we get 5, 10 years down the road and not have any regulation or enough regulation. I also want to know if the CFPB is considering the Community Reinvestment Act when these servicers are targeting low-income communities. Does that mean they're going to be subject to Community Reinvestment Act so that they put money and resources back in our communities?
Thank you for your remarks, Ms. Clark. They're very comprehensive and greatly appreciated. I'd like to invite Ms. King's colleague who didn't get a chance to testify.
Hi, my name is Renee Wall, and I agree that I use prepaid cards. I have for about 5 years. I have very much enjoyed using the ICE card as opposed to some other cards that I've used. But I was a little offended. Y'all seem to think that it's unbankable, bad credit, uneducated, people low income. I'm a graduate. I'm a registered nurse. I make 6 figures. I don't have bad credit. I use my prepaid card for the convenience. I don't have a $35 overdraft fee, nor do I have a fee to use my bank card that I have with Cassandra. I don't pay to use it to pay my utility bills every month. There's no charge for me to do that. I have a 17-year-old, a 19-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 22-year-old that all have prepaid cards to teach them financial savvy. They find the banking system old-fashioned and inconvenient. You have to go to the bank 9 to 5. They're in school, they're in sports, they're in work, they're away at college. They really like having prepaid cards. I think it's the way of the future. They get it on their smartphones. I think it needs to be regulated. I think it needs to be fair, but it's not only for people that are uneducated or low income, or it's for anybody. I just think it needs to be better regulated.
Thank you, Ms. Wall. thank you everyone for joining us. That concludes our field hearing. I want to in particular also thank those for attending who watched by live stream.